Now that I have your attention, allow me to introduce Hi-Fi Rush. Wait, stop, don't click away. Just wait a second. Look at this art style. Listen to this soundtrack and tell me you don't instantly want to go grind some rails. This may not be Sunset Overdrive 2, but it's definitely hitting the right vibes. Hi-Fi Rush is a rhythm action game developed by, get this, Tango Gameworks. The guys who make games like this. Sure, Ghostwire Tokyo was an ability-based action game with a semi-colorful world, but I don't think anyone was expecting this. The colors and the music of Hi-Fi Rush are super vibrant, and the humor is so quirky. This is like the polar opposite of Evil Within. For Tango Gameworks to capture the essence of Jet Set Radio so effectively when it has so little relation to their previous works, it shows just how talented the development team here really is. When I saw the dev reveal for this game, I instantly knew that I had to play it. Luckily for me and my empty pockets, not only was the game released immediately after the reveal, but it was also free on Game Pass. I'll save my positive rantings about Game Pass for another time, but the service has been an absolute deal when it comes to trying out new games. You never know when a game you were really excited for is going to turn out to be bad. And let me tell you, even though I was excited about this game from the moment I saw it, I was definitely nervous about spending money on it. Don't get me wrong, the art direction looked amazing, and the concept of rhythm-centric combat sounded intriguing, but there's a difference between an action game looking good and an action game feeling good to play. At some point in the near future, I'm gonna put my life on the line by talking about the Souls games. And one of my biggest gripes with certain games in this series is that while the games look impressive when you watch someone doing their level 1 no-hit speedruns, in practice, many of them don't feel very good mechanically. In my opinion, of course. Since Tango Gameworks isn't a company with a track record for satisfying rhythm games, I was understandably worried that while the game might capture the aesthetic of a Jet Set style game, it would miss out on the most important element. Say it with me, the feel. But after playing the game for myself and getting accustomed to the control scheme, I can confidently say that Hi-Fi Rush absolutely lives up to expectations. By the way, if this video meets your expectations, be sure to like and subscribe. And if it doesn't, leave a dislike. No hard feelings, but I hate you forever. And while we're segueing, why don't you go down to the comments and let me know what your favorite Jet Set Radio style game is. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about what makes Hi-Fi Rush the Sunset Overdrive successor we've all been waiting for. In true YouTuber fashion, I'm gonna work my way up from the pretty good to the great because apparently suspense increases retention, or something. I don't know how YouTube works. Much like its predecessors, Hi-Fi Rush has a story that is serviceable enough to keep you playing, but that doesn't get in the way of you actually enjoying the game. You play as the main character Chai, the victim of a failed arm replacement surgery who must now escape Vandalay Island before their company can eliminate their mistake. In order to escape, he'll have to use his newly found musical robot powers. These are the game's words, not mine. Along the way, you make new friends and unlock abilities to help you fight your way through the enemy forces. Like I said, the story is just serviceable. This might be a hot take now that we're in the era of games like Horizon, The Witcher 3, and The Last of Us, but sometimes you want to play a game that doesn't drag you into 8-minute long dialogue dumps at every turn. No shade at those games, they're great, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who finds them somewhat daunting to play at the end of a long day. It isn't that Hi-Fi Rush doesn't have dialogue anymore, but the cutscenes give you just enough to understand what's going on, and then they get out of the way. Even most of the tutorials are completely optional once the basic controls are explained. There are lore tablets and characters you can talk to if you want, but for the most part, once it gets going, the game lets you do your own thing. There is one reason you might want to interact with this game's characters though, and that is the humor. Now I can admit that at times I am a pitiful man-child that will laugh at anything remotely humorous. Case in point, I thought Sunset Overdrive was hilarious the whole way through. Sadly though, in our jaded society, any humor that isn't whatever lowbrow garbage Family Guy has become gets immediately deemed as only funny for kids. Well, I'm here to say enough is enough. This game is funny, darn it. I'll try not to spoil anything in this video. But just as an example, throughout the game you can run into these box-carrying robots who are constantly worried that they're going to be fired for a lack of productivity. And in some cases, they even respond to the things you do that impact their work. I literally laughed out loud at a good deal of the dialogue in this game, and the same can be said for the employee logs you'll find lying around. Obviously, humor is subjective, so the results will vary by the individual, but I personally find the humor in this game charming, and I think fans of Sunset Overdrive will feel right at home. While sadly there is no rail grinding or wall running in this game, Tango have found other ways to make playing Hi-Fi Rush an exhilarating experience. Before we get too carried away though, I do have one minor gripe with this game's movement that for some players could be enough to hamper their enjoyment. and that issue is the jump mechanic. In what was probably a move to make combat more responsive, Tango Gameworks opted for a weightier movement system. This isn't always an issue, but it means the standard jump will bring you crashing down a bit faster than you might expect. And in the early moments of the game, it can lead to many deaths from misreading your jump distance. There's also the issue that raw jumps are not always useful to avoid incoming attacks. On many occasions, the game expects you to dodge when the visuals of the attack make jumping seem like a reasonable option. There isn't much of a penalty for falling, and over time you'll mostly adjust to prioritizing the other defensive tools, but as a person who heavily prioritizes game feel, I can understand if this puts some people off. Outside of this issue though, I would say when it comes to how the game feels to play, they nailed it. Everything in Hi-Fi Rush is designed to sync with the music, from the background assets to the enemies you fight, and Chai is no different. At first, I thought the bass movement in the game was a tad bit slow, but then it suddenly dawned on me that every step you take is in time with the music. The game is setting you up from the very start to recognize its rhythm. Of course you can jump and dash at off intervals, but I honestly don't see why you'd want to. I've spent so much time in this game just dashing and using the attack buttons on beat for no other reason than because it feels good. And speaking of the attack buttons, the fighting in this game is another feature done masterfully. The combat controls give you light and heavy attack buttons. Light attacks take 1 beat to land and heavy attacks take 2 beats. Every attack is designed to automatically land in time with the music, but where the rhythm element of combat comes in is with your button presses. By timing your buttons to the rhythm of the music, you can achieve what's called just time, which gives more damage to your attacks and also builds meter. That meter can then be used to perform special attacks like this one, or it can be used to enhance other attacks and abilities. These systems feed into each other really well and make combat a total rush, pun intended. One of my concerns with relation to the combat was that an overfocus on rhythm would lead to the game feeling button mashy and that I would eventually get bored. But I actually think this will become another game like Sunset Overdrive that I'll continue to come back to even though I've beaten the story, and there are a couple reasons why. The first reason is that the combat actually has a progression system. When you first start the game, you're given a light combo, a heavy combo, an air attack for each button, and a set of dash attacks. As a person who's played other action games before, this seemed a bit limited to me, but it was about what I expected since the game is focused on rhythm. To my pleasant surprise though, very early on you're introduced to the attack store, where in true action game fashion you can buy new special attacks and a decently large number of combos. The game also continues to drip feed new mechanics into the mix at a rate that keeps the game feeling fresh while also spacing them out enough that you don't get overwhelmed. And while there may not be new weapons added, the combos you unlock have vastly different uses that allow you to define your own playstyle based on what you prefer. Want to launch your enemies into the air and juggle them before sending them crashing to the ground? You can do that. Or maybe you prefer a grounded hit and run playstyle where you're constantly darting in and out of danger. You can do that too. It's your choice. To supplement the combo system, you gain allies that join your party and provide assist abilities that you can use to either extend combos or create openings. For instance, one ally's assist can create openings by breaking enemy barriers, and it can extend combos by holding juggled opponents in the air for longer. On top of the attack options, you'll also gain utility tools for battle, like parries, counters, and other abilities that I'll let remain a surprise. Over time, the tools you gain create tons of opportunities for player expression. Throw in what I consider to be some decent enemy variety, and now you're guaranteed to enjoy yourself. But flashy moves alone won't make an action game truly satisfying. There has to be something else, a reason to get good at the system, an incentive for maximizing your coolness. And that's where the score and grading systems come into play. First, let's talk about the score meter. You've probably noticed this lettered meter sitting in the top right corner. This is akin to the style meter in Sunset Overdrive, or the player score in a game like Devil May Cry. You build your score by landing consecutive attacks, avoiding damage, and achieving beat hits, which are powerful combo endings. Essentially, the cooler you make Chai look, the better your score will be. This alone would probably be enough to keep many players engaged. But Tango Gameworks once again showed their understanding of the action game genre by creating a separate layer to the player scoring system. At the end of every battle, you receive an overall grade that takes into account your score from the top right corner, your rhythm accuracy, and the amount of time it took you to complete the fight. Then, at the end of every level, your grade for each fight is combined and tallied along with various score multipliers, and you receive a grade for the entire level. This is the linchpin for player satisfaction in Hi-Fi Rush. While many players might be content with just beating the game and moving on, others like myself will probably want to go back to improve their scores on levels where they didn't score so well. And for the more elite players, this opens the door for speedrunning and challenge runs. Hi-Fi's freedom of player expression combined with its grading system that rewards not only good fighting skill but good rhythm is sure to keep many players satisfied for a long time, and I for one am looking forward to the content created as a result. There were so many times playing through this game that I found myself just getting lost in the combat encounters. In fact, if I had any criticism, it would be that some of the fights feel a bit too short. Granted, the longer a fight drags on, the more some players could start to feel it's a battle of endurance rather than skill, so it's a delicate balance. But many times I found myself just wanting to fight more, and it makes me glad they added a replay feature for those who have finished the game, as well as a few options outside of the main game that allow you to experiment with the combo system. It also helps that the music in Hi-Fi Rush is so enjoyable. There are of course some songs that I like more than others, but every track will have you grooving in your seat as you trek through the levels taking down bad guys. With Hi-Fi Rush, Tango Gameworks forayed outside of their niche and, at least to me, proved that they can handle it. Now back to the clickbait title. I don't actually think this game is a substitute for Sunset Overdrive 2. There's just something so transcendent about the movement in Sunset Overdrive that you literally can't get anywhere else. But if you're like me and you're still holding out hope for a sequel, Hi-Fi Rush will at least scratch the itch. And if you already have Game Pass, then this is 100% an endorsement that you should check it out. I mean, why not? It's free. But that's all for this time. If you've played Hi-Fi Rush, be sure to let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And if you haven't already, go over and check out my Sunset Overdrive review. Also remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.